So you open up ChatGPT, and what do you see? It's just this clean, minimalist, almost weightless little chat interface, right? It feels like pure magic, just software living effortlessly up in the cloud somewhere. But the reality? OpenAI's absolute biggest problem right now isn't about building smarter intelligence, it's about brutal, heavy, industrial reality. Building the future of AI requires massive physical compute, and frankly, it's something that world suddenly doesn't have enough of. That illusion of weightless software, it completely shatters the moment you look at the physical bottleneck holding everything back.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are unpacking the incredibly high stakes and honestly mostly hidden story of why OpenAI is burning billions of dollars just to keep ChatGPT alive. This is the story of how OpenAI under Sam Altman found itself completely dependent on one of the largest physical infrastructure buildouts in human history just to survive. We're going to dive into exactly why the race for artificial intelligence is, at its core, a ruthless war for physical resources. All right, let's jump straight into part one, the hidden compute bottleneck. Okay, let's dive into this, because compute is not just some abstract Silicon Valley buzzword. We're talking about massive, heavy physical hardware. Every single time you type a prompt into ChatGPT, it triggers this insane chain reaction inside Microsoft Azure data centers. It runs on an absurd amount of hardware. We're talking enterprise-scale GPU clusters and massive physical networking systems. To put it in perspective, a single ChatGPT prompt can chew through up to 10 times the electricity of a standard Google search. It requires huge physical machinery spinning up, drawing immense raw power straight from the electrical grid. Which brings us to part two, ChatGPT's infrastructure explosion. When ChatGPT dropped, the whole world was absolutely mesmerized by how smart it was. But behind the scenes, Sam Altman and the team at OpenAI were dealing with an explosive, hair-on-fire scaling emergency. They had built something so incredibly successful and heavily used that it literally threatened to break the massive Microsoft infrastructure it was running on. We are talking about billions. Millions of users hopped on and suddenly started generating billions of tokens every single day. Now, with traditional software, scaling usually just means, spinning up a few more cheap cloud servers. But AI inference, the actual process of the AI generating your answer, is incredibly heavy. Handling those billions of tokens required an unfathomable amount of raw, physical processing power. So OpenAI was forced to pivot, and hard. They had to transform virtually overnight from this nimble little research lab into a full-blown infrastructure behemoth. We're talking thousands of highly specialized GPUs all working together inside colossal server farms. And all of that requires massive networking systems and extreme energy consumption, just to keep the servers from literally melting down. They were suddenly in the business of securing industrial-scale power, fighting just to keep their own creations online. Just let the gravity of that sink in for a second. OpenAI does not run on magic. It doesn't run on brilliant algorithms alone. It runs on GPUs. And that total physical dependence introduces the single biggest choke point of their entire operation. Let's look at part three, the NVIDIA dependency. So the crucial point here is that while OpenAI might have software independence, they have the brilliant minds making these massive intelligence breakthroughs, they are completely handcuffed by hardware dependency. Almost all modern AI, especially at the insane scale OpenAI operates at, runs on NVIDIA GPUs, specifically the NVIDIA H100. This means OpenAI is entirely beholden to Jensen Huang's physical supply chains. They can only move as fast as global factories can turn out these incredibly complex pieces of silicon. And here is the really intense reality of the market right now. OpenAI is definitely not the only one who needs them. As AI demand exploded, global GPU shortages hit the industry like a freight train. OpenAI suddenly found itself in an absolute dogfight with Microsoft, Meta, xAI, Google, Amazon, you name it. They are all fiercely competing for the exact same physical hardware. Moving right along to part four, the billion-dollar problem. To give you a sense of the scale here, it now costs hundreds of millions of dollars in upfront capital just to train a frontier AI model like GPT-4. Before the model even answers a single question from a user, OpenAI has to spend an absolute fortune securing the massive server halls and the compute time required just to feed data into the neural network. And actually, scratch that, that's just the training. Inference, which is the cost of actually serving you and me when we use ChatGPT, is this constant planetary scale drain. Once an AI product goes global, the infrastructure never stops running. It is 24/7. Servers draw massive amounts of power and require industrial cooling systems running around the clock. The more popular ChatGPT gets, the more money OpenAI literally burns in real-time physical energy. Which brings us to the climax of this whole financial escalation. This staggering, unending physical cost is exactly why Sam Altman has reportedly been exploring raising massive sums, even floating numbers in the trillions, to completely reshape the global semiconductor industry. Because OpenAI knows they don't just need smarter models anymore. They need more GPUs, they need more power, and they need more data centers at a global planetary scale. Because here is the hard truth. The AI race is no longer just about creating the smartest algorithms in a lab. It is fundamentally about funding industrial-scale capacity. The true cost of intelligence is now tied directly to concrete, steel, silicon, and the electrical grid. And that brings us to our final section, Part 5, Who Controls AI's Future? When we break down how OpenAI's operation is totally stocked up, a really glaring vulnerability appears. Sure, at the top you have the app, ChatGPT, which OpenAI controls. But underneath that, the compute layer relies entirely on NVIDIA H100s, and the cloud and power layer relies heavily on Microsoft Azure data centers. OpenAI is deeply, deeply intertwined with massive external partners for its very survival. They provide the neat little interface, but Microsoft and NVIDIA are providing the massive physical engine. Let's see how this builds into the broader picture, because this dynamic feeds right into a brutal new global landscape. The new AI war isn't just fought with code anymore. It's a war for raw energy grids. It is a war for semiconductor manufacturing capacity. It's a massive battle over global supply chains and giant industrial cooling systems. This is an infrastructure build-out on a scale we honestly haven't seen in generations. So, the ultimate victor in the AI race isn't just going to be the company that writes the smartest software. No way. The future of AI belongs to whoever can command the most physical compute. The companies that secure the power, the land, and the cooling, they are the ones who will dictate what is actually possible. The world looks at AI and sees this weightless, magical software, but underneath it is quickly becoming the heaviest industry of the 21st century. So if AI requires this enormous planetary-scale physical footprint, who truly holds the power? Does it belong to the brilliant creators at OpenAI making the models, or does the real power ultimately lie with the colossal companies controlling the physical infrastructure, the silicon, and the energy grids underneath them? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Let that sink in.